the pedophile, the child rapist, the criminal, Donald Trump, he's finished. He thought by distracting us from the Epstein files and going to Iran war, he would be able to be successful in his plot. But guess what? American people can see right through it. He's going to war with Iran is now backfiring big time. And that's what we want to discuss in this video. But before I do that, if you're not subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing. I want to share this report from MS Now first, and then I will show you some other clips. Take a listen at this one.
Last year, back in June, Trump was repeatedly warned by his own agencies that one of the primary ways Iran could strike back against the U.S. was through a cyber attack. Trump's Department of Homeland Security warned about it, as did CISA, the NSA, the Department of Defense, and the FBI. And nearly a year ago, all 5 of those agencies warned Trump about the danger of cyber attacks from Iran. But despite those warnings, Trump cut more than 1,000 jobs at CISA, our country's top cybersecurity agency. Well, guess what the Trump administration started doing this week after they cut 1,000 CISA jobs and started a war with a country known for cyber attacks? Well, they announced plans to hire 300 more people at CISA. Oh, you need those guys after all? Who could have predicted that one? Maybe anyone. Tomorrow marks 1 month of Trump's war with Iran. And one of the defining features of this war so far has been the combination of how predictable Iran's responses have been, and also how seemingly unprepared the Trump administration has been in handling those responses.
Yes, of course, as Trump himself said, they are doing this for the last 47 years. Iran is evil. Last 47 years, this happened, that happened with Iranian regime and all that. But guess what? The last 47 years, they're also preparing for this day when you attacked them. And for the last 47 years, United States did not prepare itself to confront Iran whatsoever. Now, all of a sudden, they're facing new setbacks, challenges, and defeat. This time, it came in the form of cyber attack, and it is just gonna escalate even more as Donald Trump is now trapped into this escalation war with Iran. Take a listen a little bit more.
And in handling those responses. I mean, just take, for example, a few of the warnings that Trump's top military advisor, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, reportedly gave Trump before he attacked Iran. The Wall Street Journal reported that before the U.S. went to war, General Kane told Trump that an American attack could prompt Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz. Trump reportedly said that he thought Tehran would capitulate before closing the strait, and that even if Iran tried, the U.S. military, they could handle it. Well, now the strait has been closed.
Well, as many analysts, they're now saying that Donald Trump went to this war when Strait of Hormuz was still open. He went to this war and now the Strait of Hormuz is closed. In other words, he went to this war and trying to solve a problem now because his administration, all of these corrupt people, Pete Hegseth, all of these moronic devil worshippers, they are now focused on how to open Strait of Hormuz. So they created a problem and now they are trying to solve it. Why did you not go to war for something else? I mean, you knew that Iran could be a danger, according to Donald Trump, for so many other reasons, nuclear program, ballistic missile, whatever. But then you did not really go to war for this. Maybe you have gone to war for this, but now you're finding that, well, the main problem is not Iran's nuclear program, for which I went to war with them. But the problem now I'm facing is the one I have created myself, which is the closure of Strait of Hormuz. This guy doesn't have any brain. I mean, he forgets his brain often with his dementia and cognitive decline. But to this level, nobody expected.
Handle it. Well, now the strait has been closed for nearly a month, strangling the global supply of everything from oil to fertilizer to key components used in computer chips and prescription drugs. Another thing Trump's top general, Dan Kane, reportedly warned Trump about before the war was that it could lead to shortfalls in critical munitions, warning that there were so many military targets in Iran trying to actually make a dent would deplete already low stockpiles. Well, guess what the Washington Post reported today? The U.S. has already fired more than 850 Tomahawk cruise missiles in this war, burning through the weapons at a rate that is alarming to some Pentagon officials. And just to put that in perspective, recent versions of Tomahawk missiles cost as much as $3.6 million apiece, take up to 2 years to build. Only a few hundred are manufactured every year.
So he has used billions of worth of Tomahawk, just the Tomahawk. Then you also have F-35, F-15, F-16, either getting destroyed or damaged, costing Donald Trump, United States taxpayers, not Donald Trump, U.S. taxpayers, at least $1 billion. If you add all of them together, you will see just the loss military assets from all of this is in the billions. It is not in the millions. So, of course, he calculated everything. He's a smart guy, right? He loves smart guy. But this is the level of smartness he is showing to us.
A few hundred are manufactured every year. But we have already used more than 850 in 4 weeks. Another thing Trump's top military advisor reportedly warned him about before he started this war was that a lack of support from our allies would add significant risk to the operation and to U.S. personnel. And last week, Trump called on our allies to help guard ships as they passed through the Strait of Hormuz. Most refused. Trump was reportedly furious, irate. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham even said that he had never heard Trump so angry in his life. Then seemingly, I guess to save face, Trump insisted that actually the U.S. didn't need any help after all, which is clearly not the case. I mean, take the fact that just today, Trump's Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in France meeting with allies of ours that have not sent warships to the Strait, trying to convince them to join us. Who could have predicted that our allies might not want to rush into a war with Iran? Who could have predicted that an all-out war with Iran would dangerously deplete our nation's munitions? Who could have predicted that Iran would shut down the Strait of Hormuz? And who could have predicted that Iran would respond with cyber attacks?
And all of this, guys, I have to break it down. All of these things are happening, these big failures, one after another, these big defeats and humiliation happening simply because of just one nation, and that is the State of Israel. The Zionist State of Israel is depleting United States Tomahawk missile stockpile. They're depleting every single ammunition they have left. They're depleting United States of everything. But United States now also sees that the troops, their own troops, are getting killed in Iran. I mean, just yesterday we had incidents of mass casualties in Saudi Arabia on the U.S. troops there, stationed there. Guys, this is just getting out of control, and Donald Trump is finished. This moronic, pathetic guy is finished.
The answer is anybody with knowledge of the region and any military expertise. The reason the president has the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the reason they have top advisors, is to warn them, to play out, to red team the consequences of their actions as they're making decisions, to help them understand what the impact of their decisions will be. Now, I should note that after all that reporting came out about Dan Cain having warned Trump about how disastrous a war with Iran could be, Trump denied it, said it was fake news, and said that Cain actually thought a war with Iran would be, quote, easily won. Now, is that what General Cain actually thought? We don't know. But given all those warnings, I seriously doubt it. And now there's new reporting revealing that many within the White House are just going along to get along, despite their own reservations about this war. Current and former White House officials spoke to MS Now's Jake Traylor about disagreements they had with how the administration was approaching the war with Iran. And while those current and former White House officials felt fine disagreeing with the White House anonymously in the press, they said that they do not share those same opinions within the walls of the White House for fear of negative repercussions. One former White House official saying, quote, so many people are afraid of being on the outs that they are just drinking the Kool-Aid and going along with it.
Of course, because there is no other choice. I mean, take Tulsi Gabbard, for example. She is completely a sellout. She changed her position from no war, new war, going to a foreign country or regime change war, to now, yeah, it was important that we changed regime in Iran. These people are going along with Donald Trump, fearing for their career, not just for their job, but for their career. Take a listen at this one.
Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure. I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won.
Speaking in the White House earlier, Donald Trump was asked how hopeful he is that a peace deal with Iran will work. He responded, "The war has been won." Yes, this week, Donald Trump managed to do two things that rarely coexist comfortably in serious statecraft. Casually assign credit for the start of a war and publicly narrate supposed diplomatic progress that the other side insists doesn't exist. If nothing else, it underscores a defining trait of his leadership style, an inability to keep sensitive matters contained. Trump said today that his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, was quite disappointed by the prospect of the US negotiating a ceasefire with Iran. Pete didn't want it to be settled, he said, adding that Hegseth and General Dan Kane, the Joint Chiefs, were the only two people that were quite disappointed. Trump called it a good attitude to have, which doesn't really make sense given his repeated claims that the US and Iran are talking and that it's going very well.
Talking about his mouth, right, how bad it is right now, he recently made a comment, a very derogatory comment about Saudi Arabia's prince, MBS, and he said that MBS has no other choice but to kiss his ass. I mean, come on. This time when you need allies, when you need Saudi Arabia to fight Iran, you're insulting their head of state, MBS. This is the level of dementia and unhingedness, if I can call it an unhingedness, that Donald Trump is demonstrating every day.
US and Iran are talking and that it's going very well. They were not interested in settlement, he said, of Hegseth and Kane. They were interested in just winning this thing. Just moments earlier, Trump said that negotiations with Iran to end the war were underway right now, claiming Tehran wants to make a deal so badly. Meanwhile, speaking at the Tennessee Air National Guard base yesterday, Trump walked through the moment that his administration pivoted toward military action in Iran. The setting was meant to project control and resolve. Instead, the account sounded almost improvised. He described calling a circle of advisors, including Hegseth and senior military officials, to weigh the options as tensions with Iran escalated. The framing was stark: continue riding a booming stock market or interrupt that momentum to confront what he cast as a long-standing threat in the Middle East.
We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
What stood out wasn't the familiar justification about Iran's nuclear ambitions or its regional behavior. It was Trump's eagerness to spotlight Hegseth as the person who first pushed for military action. According to Trump, Hegseth was the one who spoke up and urged a strike, arguing the United States could not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. There was no intelligence or evidence of that anyway.
Well, obviously, he threw Hegseth under the bus the other day when he said Hegseth was responsible for going to this disastrous war. He's trying to find people, more and more people, to put the blame on so that he can scapegoat them and take no responsibility, because that's what he wants to do. Now, this is on BBC. It says basically the failure to learn from the past means that Donald Trump now faces a stark choice. If he cannot get a deal with Iran, he can either try to declare a victory that will fool no one or escalate the war. He has two choices, according to this article from BBC again. The oldest of the old truths comes from the Prussian military strategist, Helmut von Moltke the Elder. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. He was writing in 1871. The year Germany was unified as an empire, a moment that was as consequential for the security of Europe as this war might be for the security of the Middle East. You have to take responsibility, Donald Trump, because you are just doomed. Maybe Trump prefers, this is what was said on BBC again, the boxer Mike Tyson's modern version, quote, everyone has a plan until they get hit. Even more relevant for Trump are the words of one of his predecessors, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the American general who commanded the D-Day landings in 1944 and went on to serve 2 terms as a Republican president of the United States in 1950s. Eisenhower's version was, quote, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. He meant that the discipline and process of making plans to fight a war make it possible to change course when the unexpected happens. For Trump, the unexpected item has been the resilience of the regime in Iran. Of course, that's not what Trump planning. It seems that he was hoping for a repeat of the U.S. military's lightning-fast kidnap in January of President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Flores. They are now in prison in New York facing trial. Maduro's deputy Delcy Rodriguez replaced him as president and is taking orders from Washington. That was the fantasy Donald Trump had when he went to war with Iran.
Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. General, it's good to have you on the show. Let me start with that reporting from our Jake Traylor about the internal divisions within the White House over Iran and how dangerous that is to have a commander-in-chief, per the reporting, fighting a war without a unified strategy at the very top.
I don't think it's surprising that there are divisions inside the White House. This is a really tough operation, and we're nearing an inflection point. So there are very difficult choices ahead. Is he going to commit Marines and airborne forces onto the islands? Is he going to cut a deal somehow with the Iranians and call it off? Is he going to call it off without cutting a deal? And I'm sure there are voices inside the White House pulling it every which way. That's the way it is. This is not a surprise. This is pretty normal. I remember when I was running an air campaign against Serbia in 1999, there were people inside the White House looking at every angle of it, and some people saying one thing, I'm sure people were saying the other. Everybody wants the United States to succeed in what it does, but people have different ideas. Now, the question is whether those different ideas get up to the president and are evaluated, or whether they're just kept private. That I don't know.
General Clark, as you mentioned, you're a combat commander. What do you make of the Wall Street Journal's reporting that there has been up to $2.9 billion in damages and losses, including the F-15s and the one F-35, along with the major radar installations in Jordan and Qatar? What do you think about the pace of this war, and do you worry about the damage to U.S. assets and our overall readiness?
I do have concerns because it's not the aircraft so much.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the pilots seem to be okay, but it is the radars. There aren't that many of them. It's the fact that they weren't adequately protected. And it's really deeper than that. It's really about understanding your adversary. And I think there are some indicators that perhaps we didn't take our adversary seriously enough at the strategic level and also at the tactical level. So if you look at the strategic level, the Iranians still have a chain of command. They're still launching missiles. They're still issuing statements. And so even though we've gone 2 or 3 levels deep at the top, it hasn't fractured the chain of command so far as we can see from the outside. And then if you look at the tactical level, they prepared for this for years and years and years. So somehow they're getting the exact locations. Is it Chinese satellites? Is it Russian intelligence? We don't know, but their missiles are more accurate probably than we anticipated. Their drones are more effective, and maybe we weren't as prepared as we should have been to deal with those drones, even around our installations in Iraq. So I'm sure there's some soul searching going on in the Pentagon right now, and I'm certain that people are going to try to patch this up as rapidly as possible.
General,
as this general said, Iran was prepared for it for the last at least 20 years. Or 24 years since the invasion of Afghanistan. But obviously it all started when they came into power 47 years ago. But they picked up the pace when they saw Afghanistan came under attack. This time it is a complete mess. Trump is literally finished. Like, he doesn't really have a chance. He doesn't understand his adversaries. He thought that Khamenei will be just like another Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. But lo and behold, that is absolutely not the case. And now he's freaking out. He's losing his path.
Well, that's a dangerous situation, to state the obvious. In other words, the emperor has no clothes, but his aides are saying his clothes look great anyway. Except it's, of course, not Trump's outfit we're talking about here. It's a war. Now, in another gobsmacking quote, this one from a senior White House official, a current senior White House official, that is, told MS Now that Trump is, quote, getting a little bored with Iran. It's not that he regrets it, this official said. He's just bored and wants to move on. Just to put that, keep that in your mind, with the fact that human rights groups believe that nearly 1,500 civilians have been killed in Iran so far. 13 U.S. service members have been killed to date. More than 300 U.S. troops have been injured. And tonight, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that even more are injured, writing that 10 U.S. service members were wounded in an attack on a Saudi airbase. 2 of them were described as seriously wounded. I wonder if Donald Trump is still bored. I wonder.
Yeah, he's bored because this man-child, doesn't have any plan. He doesn't know what he's doing. He is bored now. He wants to move on to something else, and that something else will be Cuba, attacking Cuba. And then who else? Because remember, he's trying to distract all of us from the Epstein files, and that is not going to go away. He wants all of us to move on from the Epstein files. We will not move on, because after all of this over, he will be held accountable, and we hope that he will be impeached. He will definitely lose midterm election. If you take a look at the poll, you will know what I'm talking about. And then he will be impeached. Then he will lose the election, and then hopefully we can send him to jail where he belongs, not in the White House. Subscribe for more videos in the next one.